I kissed my favorite Rockstar during a show, and now I can't get him out of my head. The crowd cheered around us, but I barely registered their yelling. All I could think about was Luke Anderson, the singer of my favorite band, Dionysus, kissing me passionately in my own body, responding to the lip lock. He pulled away and gestured toward the crowd. Sorry, I got a little carried away with a fan. Nobody else cared, but the excited screeches continued. I glanced back over at him, and he nodded. You can go back now, he whispered in my ear, the hot breath immediately sending shivers down my spine. I walked back to where my place was with Nina, my best friend, who smirked. Aren't you glad I got those concert tickets for you? I was. She brought me to Dionysus' concert because she knew I was a huge fan, and her girlfriend wasn't all that into them. What started as a fun little concert now left me confused about what was to come. I still can't believe it. He kissed me. Yeah, he did, but rockstars do that. They love to kiss fans for the publicity. I mean, maybe, but one look at Luke told me something else. Still, I couldn't get ahead of myself. It was one kiss, and he probably just wanted to make this tour special. I hoped to see Luke again, but I doubted it. After all, he was a rock star, and I was just a loyal fan drowning in a student loan debt. A week later. A week passed since the concert with Nina, and the painful reality became all too apparent the next morning I woke up. I went to my job, which barely paid the bills, and when I got home, I saw yet another notice from the debt collectors. I tore it up, but the lingering reality that I needed to get them off my back loomed over me. Nina came over a little bit later and sat on the couch with me. Every week we did this. She would come over and watch the newest episode of our favorite reality TV shows. Her girlfriend Bree never liked them, so she would come over here. Do you think he did it? Nina asked the moment it turned to commercial. I don't know. I still need some more clues to... The doorbell rang. Nina looked at me with confusion. Expecting somebody? I shook my head. No, I'm not. I headed to the door and opened it. There, right in front of me, was a man dressed in a perfectly pressed suit. His slick black hair showed off his pale face and the hint of stubble. Can I help you? Yes, I'm Gregory Jacobs, Luke Anderson's PR manager. I wanted to talk to you about the kiss you shared last week. No way, am I getting in trouble for this? I opened the door and he stepped inside. Right behind him was Luke in all his blonde-haired and blue-eyed glory. This was surreal. How did they track me down? Why are they here? We went to the living room and they joined us on the other two small chairs. Sorry, I don't usually have much company. Not to worry, Luke and I will only take a few minutes. Nina gave me an impish smile and Gregory grabbed the briefcase, pulling out some of its contents. He laid them on the coffee table and gestured to them, then spoke. I came here because Luke and I would like you to attend his next show as his boyfriend. A few minutes later, I sat there completely shocked. There was no way. This was unreal. Nina gingerly touched me and pulled me from my thoughts. I'm sorry, but I can't. It wasn't that I didn't want to, but after what my ex Aaron did, I could not agree to something like that. Unfazed, Gregory pulled out something else from his briefcase of wonders, a blank check. He gestured to it, his face still unamused. We are willing to offer as much money as you need. Please, I can't. Nonsense, you need it, don't you? You could at least use it to get yourself a nice living room set. I brushed off the rude comment about the living room and then sighed. I didn't need money. The creditors drew closer and my job had no intent of giving me a raise. I do have some debts, I finally said. I just don't want to commit. Aaron's made it hard to trust other guys, even if this was fake. Gregory nodded, resting his fingers on his chin. It is only for this new PR program. After that, you are free to go on your merry way. I think it's a good idea, Nina said. I knew what she was doing. She wanted to play matchmaker because she was the first person I told. All right, I uttered. I'll do it. Good. Then sign here. He handed me the contract. It was straightforward. Pretend to date, kiss, and hug when the cameras were on us and make it seem real. It all seemed pretty reasonable. Still, I hated it. I swore off dating after Aaron and had no intention of getting physical. Money was money, though, and I needed it. With that, I signed it away. And after Luke and I exchanged numbers, we agreed to go out on dates. It was all fake, after all. None of this would mean anything after the tour was over. A week later. Our first date was at one of the eateries in town. Luke said I should dress nicely, so I did, in slacks and a long-sleeve dress shirt. When he came to pick me up, he looked like a Greek god. Makes sense why he would be named Dionysus. That, and the guy loved to party. When we walked in, the cameras were on us, and Luke immediately grabbed my hand. We went to the table, and the waiter got us our food. Conversation was awkward at first, given that Luke was a few years older than me and a rock star. "Tell me about yourself, Brandon. What do you like to do?" I flushed. Even the most random words were like honey from his lips. I told him I liked dramas and watched them with Nina, my friend. I told him about my love for cooking when I wasn't burnt out from my crappy office job. The second he heard that, his eyes lit up. "We should make something together someday." "You mean it?" I asked. "Yes, it would be great. I love to cook." And the press turned to us, watching us like zoo animals. Luke subdued himself, becoming the demure heartthrob that everyone enjoyed. Still, despite his fake smiles and sweet words, I saw the real Luke hiding underneath it all, and I liked it. About 2 weeks later. Our next date was one of those parties rock stars get invited to. This one was at a really nice building downtown. Luke pulled up with a limo, and this time I wore a whole-ass suit. When I walked in, I felt so out of place. People talked amongst each other, but their eyes remained on us. Nervousness flowed through my body, but Luke's hand wrapped around mine felt nice. "Don't worry, let them look. They have something great to admire," he whispered in my ear. There it was again, the heat I felt the night we shared that kiss on stage. Luke introduced me to a person after person. Supposedly, all these people worked with record labels he was a part of, and I listened to them drone on about all sorts of random stuff. Luke did the same, and once they left, he sighed. "It gets so tiresome." "Putting on the front?" "Yes," he admitted, taking a few steps closer so that the others didn't hear him speak. "Every day I have to pretend this and that. Sometimes I wish I could just be the real me, the bisexual man who loves to cook and has a dog named Rocky that he would die for." I smiled. "You can show me." There it was again, his eyes lit up, just like the night of our first date. "I would love that, Brandon. In fact, maybe after this party I can take you to my penthouse," he offered. "That'd be lovely," I whispered in his ear back the same way he did to me. He pulled me close and kissed me. Those soft lips felt just as good this time as they did the first time. Immediately, I saw some of the undercover paparazzi taking pictures of us, but I didn't care. We deepened the kiss until he pulled back to catch his breath. It felt nice. On a physical level, I enjoyed it, even if I wasn't ready to commit. Luke pulled away, smirking as his eyes glanced at the eager paparazzi. "Well, let's keep on going. Show them this facade and make them happy." I nodded. "Yes, we should." For the rest of the night, we schmoozed with more people. I discovered through this that Luke wasn't all that different after all. He was a good man with his own baggage, and I hoped that, as we drew closer, we could understand each other even more. 3 days later. Luke and I weren't supposed to see each other till the end of the month. He had some music videos to shoot, and I had my job to focus on. Still, I found myself thinking about Luke more. No, I needed to stop. I told myself I wouldn't get into any relationships because of what Aaron did. Sure, it was 6 months ago, but it stung. My phone beeped, and I looked down, seeing Luke's name in the caller ID. "Are you free? The music video got postponed." My heart raced. Part of me wanted to say no, to ignore the urge to commit. Against my better judgment, I said yes. Luke agreed to pick me up and head down to the marina on his private yacht. He got there a few minutes later, and soon we headed to the marina. A pleasant silence hung over us, but in my head, my thoughts were a storm. "Something the matter?" "Oh, it's nothing." "All right." We got out and headed towards the marina, and Luke guided me towards his yacht. My eyes widened. "This is huge." "Yep, I never get to take it out. Thought about doing something special." "Why? I'm just your cover." Luke stood there, hesitation on his face. "It's not completely like that for me." I stood there, my heart at a crossroads. Part of me wanted to say the same, but that meant moving on. Ignoring the feelings, I headed into the yacht. Luke drove us out towards the middle of the water. He rested his hands on the end of the railing as he looked out, a small glass of champagne nestled between his fingers. "It's nice out here," he mentioned. It is," I finally said. The entire city sat before us, casting an almost ethereal glow over us. My heart thumped as I looked over at Luke. Once he saw the look on my face, he frowned. "What's the matter?" "Oh, nothing. Just, it's strange how much I want to spend time with you. Usually when it comes to dating, I keep everyone at a distance." "Why is that?" "Just the past. When Gregory prompted this, I thought he was insane." "Because you didn't want to fake something like this, right?" "Bingo," Luke said, sighing. "I never thought I could enjoy being around someone, but when I'm with you, it's different." "Like how?" "Like, I find myself thinking about you more and more, wondering how you're doing and all that stuff." I paused, flushing slightly. "Same," I mumbled, barely audible. He smiled. Makes me wonder if this is so fake after all. I wondered this too, but accepting my feelings terrified me. Was I ready to finally escape the old feelings I dealt with for so long? Right. Luke turned my body so we faced each other. His eyes met mine, and I saw his eyes widen slightly. I don't think I'm imagining this, Brandon, but it's ultimately your choice if you want to move on. In truth, I did. So badly that it drove me crazy. I feared the implications of commitment, though. Our breaths mingled, and I was so close I could close the gap and kiss him, and just accept my feelings. But trusting Luke also meant accepting that I was ready. I pulled back and smiled. I want to take things slower, if that's okay. Yeah, he said with a smile. I think that's for the best. Disappointment sat etched across his face, and I regretted what I said. However, I knew running into love was not the solution. I needed time, plus, I didn't know what the future held for us. Once this PR move was over, would he leave? I hope not. We spent the rest of the evening together, the conflict of emotions deep within my heart. Luke and I still talked, growing closer. Still, every time I wanted to pursue this, to finally open up and let him in, I stopped myself. Could I ever tell him the truth? A month later. The dates became more frequent, but so did our personal time together. While we hugged and kissed for the camera, I saw a side of Luke that was different from what the audience saw. He was a sweet, caring man and a total animal lover. He was also an incredible cook. Every time we spent time together, I felt the temptation to tell him about my feelings and what I truly wanted. Yes, I was beginning to fall for him. I knew I stopped myself multiple times, but the longer I denied it, the more it gnawed at me. And right now, I was about ready to explode, to finally rip off the band-aid and tell him my past. He invited me to his fancy-ass house and let me stay for a bit. As we finished the food and placed it in the oven, he closed the door and grinned. I'm so lucky to have you. Why's that? I asked. Because you are so versed in the kitchen. Not even the women I dated were this suave. I laughed. Oh, you flatter me. I did go to school to be a chef, but things didn't work out due to the student loans. You should try it again, he said. We sat on the couch, and as the movie droned on, I looked at Luke. Since being around him, I have developed feelings for him. It wasn't just the fake stuff we did to make the girl squeal. No, it was real. I kissed him when the cameras were off, and we would touch each other when nobody was looking. As I sat there, I dwelled on this, and Luke grabbed my hand. What's wrong? It's this relationship, I admitted. At first, this was supposed to be just for PR, but it's become more than that, and I'm not sure how to feel. Why, you like me, don't you? He asked. I did, but that meant I had to be honest with myself and why I shied away from dating. I nodded, looking down as the words fell from my lips. I do, but there's something I need to tell you. Something I wanted to say that night on your yacht, but I was afraid. He pulled me close, and I inhaled the scent of his cologne. It relaxed me, giving me a strange bit of relief. He rubbed circles against my back, and I relaxed a moment later. You can tell me, Brandon. I'm here for you. I knew something was wrong that night, but I didn't want to pry. I'm not that type. Thanks. It's just that, once I say it, I'll finally admit the truth to myself, and it makes me wonder if I'm ready. That's up to you and what you feel here, he replied, touching above where my heart was. I paused. No, it was time to get it off my chest and tell Luke how I really felt. My ex, he cheated on me, and since then, I've had trouble trusting people, especially when it came to dating. Tell me what happened, he finally said. I looked over, and the light-filled eyes darkened to something more serious. We can work through this together. So I did. I told him about how Aaron said he loved me and treated me like a prince, and even planned to marry me, but I found out he cheated on me with my former roommate. The pain came up, but Luke listened the entire time. By the end, I was a mess. However, Luke reached out and pulled my chin up so I could stare into those blue eyes. You have nothing to worry about, Brandon. I won't hurt you. I'll help shoulder these burdens with you together. He kissed me, and immediately I reacted, wrapping my arms around him. Our bodies came together, and that night I slept with Luke. It felt so right and so real. This was not a fake relationship anymore. A month later, Luke took me to another one of his events. We kissed and held hands for the camera, but it was also for each other. I'm very excited for the rest of this tour, too. I'll be happy to see you there. Luke paused, and his smile drifted away. I gently touched his arm and jumped. Something the matter? No, it's just I thought I saw someone I knew. I opened my mouth to ask, but soon a woman with long brown hair and big green eyes walked over. Her eyes looked up and down at me in judgment. So, this is your new boyfriend, huh? Yes, Angie, Luke muttered. Babe, this is Angie Cross, a model and ex of Luke's, she said, her voice like venom. Interesting that you would say you're together with him because I know this is fake. It's not, I replied. We're happy and... Please, Luke was happiest with me. You can't give him anything, she snapped, her lips curling into an evil smile. He knows I was the best thing he ever had. You were the biggest headache I ever had, Luke uttered. Well, I'd say be careful. I know what you're doing here, Luke. It's all for attention. You can't deny that. She walked away, her heels clicking on the ground. For the rest of the night, Luke was stoic and uncomfortable. She tried to get some of the press to publish that we weren't together, claiming it was all fake. We corrected them, but that did not stop her. Finally, the guards escorted them out, but not before she turned and looked at me. Don't trust Luke. He doesn't care about anyone. 2 weeks later, Luke got distant. It started after that press event. We went to shows together, and while we kept up the facade, his heart didn't seem in it. I tried to ask, but he grew more distant, telling me that he was fine. I knew he wasn't. I wasn't born yesterday. The best thing to do was to let it go. So I did. After the show, he would drop me off and kiss me on the cheek. Sometimes he didn't even do that at all. I tried to ask, but he said that he needed some space. Perhaps I moved too fast. A week later, my office job kept my mind off things. One day, while I transcribed some text for a client, my phone buzzed. It was a news article forwarded to me from Nina, with the words, "You better look at this," attached to the link. I opened it, and what I saw broke my heart. Luke's hands were on another woman's, and she smiled, getting all close to him. They were candid pictures, but he looked genuinely happy. All that time I spent trying to make this work with Luke felt like a waste of time. Here I was getting cheated on again, so much for trusting. Tears prickled my eyes. I tried calling Luke, but it went straight to voicemail. I clocked out early and called Nina, who came over with some emergency Ben & Jerry's ice cream and some of our favorite sad movies. At least Ben & Jerry's won't hurt me. I cried for the rest of the night, upset about how I felt. Nina understood. She knew that I didn't just like him. I loved him. The relationship seemed so real. Too bad it was nothing more than a slap in the face. A month later, Luke didn't reach out to me and I didn't bother to reach out either. I was out of debt, but I felt more trapped than before. I sat around my house wondering if I should get on Tinder or Grindr again. Maybe the one is out there waiting for me, or maybe I was better off being single. I felt like a fool for even thinking about trusting someone again after being burned not once but twice. But I hated only having Nina to talk to. She had a girlfriend and I hated being the third wheel. I opened up the app and cringed. It looked as corny as it always did. I got to the profile page and prepared my spiel in hopes that I'd have some luck. Before I scrolled to fill out my information, there was another knock at the door. Who could it be? Maybe it was Nina coming to check on me. I walked over, but when I opened the door, all I could do was audibly gasp. It was Luke! He was wet from the rain outside and looked tired. I opened the door a little wider as I stared at him agape. Luke, what are you doing here? He didn't respond, but instead stepped forward and held me in his arms. He didn't say a word, but the warm embrace was nice. I'm so sorry, Brandon. I learned what happened. I didn't know Angie did that. What do you mean? I asked as I pulled away. He explained the woman was an old friend of his, who was married and happy. They were catching up, and he saw the pictures but thought nothing of it. Turns out it was Angie who orchestrated the whole thing to make me jealous, and Luke discovered the article right after. He wanted to talk to me but needed to get to the bottom of this first. He contacted Gregory to help find the source and to scrub the article. When he confronted her, he told Angie the truth, that he had feelings for me and Angie needed to get over it. I love you, Brandon. I can't be with anyone else. I don't see life without you. Luke, are you serious? He nodded. Yes, I want to be with you. Nothing will stop me. We kissed once again and the butterflies in my stomach came back. For the rest of the night, Luke and I talked and we discussed the future of our relationship. He wanted this to continue long after the PR campaign was over. You're fine with this, right? With a smile, I nodded. I cannot think of anything better. 6 months later. After that night, our lives became a whirlwind of fun. We went on tour together, and despite it being a PR move, I became a permanent part of Dionysus. Luke took me on tour, and I got to see many different and wonderful cities. Every night, I would be in the VIP area watching Luke perform on stage. It was so riveting to watch, and the fact that he was all mine just made everything better. Nina came as well, and she managed to convince Bree to come to one of the shows too. We also did interviews together. During one for a tabloid magazine, the interviewer adjusted her black glasses and looked directly at Luke. "So, Luke, I heard this guy is your boyfriend." "Correct. This is Brandon. We've been together for over a year now. We just celebrated our anniversary the other day." Luke took me out to dinner and then to the top of the Seattle Space Needle. It was so romantic. "Well, it seems like you finally settled down," the interviewer said. "I know Luke has troubles with commitment." I tensed up. That was so long ago. The interviewer still loved to paint the picture that Luke was unfaithful, but I knew the real him. "Well, we've been going on for a year now. What about the future? Have you thought about it?" "Yes," I challenged. "Both of us have." I rattled off our plans for vacation, and the interviewer, surprised by my outburst, listened. As I finished, she smiled. "Very interesting." The interviewer nodded, but her eyes continued to stare at Luke. "How are you doing? Are you happy? For someone with a Playboy reputation, it's quite the transition to see you finally settling down." Luke wrapped an arm around me and pulled me close, a big grin on his face. "I'm quite ecstatic, and I've never been so happy in my life."
Conclusion. After all that happened, I knew Luke and I were in this for the long haul. We've been through ups and downs, but we've grown closer. I realized how important it is to communicate openly, even when things feel tough. We decided to take things one day at a time, supporting each other. Our future together feels bright now. I'm excited to see where our journey leads us, and I know that no matter what, we'll face it together as a team. The end. Have you ever been kissed by a famous person? Tell us in the comments. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become a part of our Rainbow Force and stay wholesome.